Welcome to Sober and Lit,
the podcast for women who want to get sober, stay sober, and live a life that's way more lit than it ever was with wine.
We're your hosts, Ruby and Susan, two alcohol freedom coaches keeping it real with stories, tools, and zero judgment.
Whether you're sober curious or all in, you're in the right place.
Let's feel lit, alcohol free. Welcome back to the Sober and Lit podcast. And hey, listeners, today we have another special guest. So I'm going to introduce her. Brandi Babb is a certified coach and somatic experiencing practitioner focused on sobriety. Brandi quit drinking alcohol in 2019. Because of the change she experienced and the impact of coaching on her own life, she decided to transition from being a training and programs or operations executive to a business owner and coach. Her coaching and programs focus on the whole person and how alcohol is often a temporary solution for things like emotional regulation, lost sense of self, unresolved trauma, and nervous system dysregulation. So Brandi lives in Long Beach, California with her husband of 20 plus years and enjoys being on and near water, long walks, quiet mornings with coffee and prayer, sushi, dates, and time with her family and friends, reading, getting to know people, and hiking. And she's the owner of Little Big Leap Coaching and co-owner of Zero Proof Life, an online community for women. So welcome, Brandi.
Yes.
I've known you for years.
Thank you so much. Yes, I'm so excited for this conversation today, having known you both and gotten to coach with you as well. I mean, gosh, Ruby, we've had the honor of that. And it's been such a pleasure. So this is a true honor. So thank you, ladies.
I'm so excited.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Welcome. Well, we'd love to just, start you off with a bit of your story around, your relationship with alcohol, and maybe there was a turning point or moment that you decided to stop drinking. Like, will you share that with us and our listeners, please?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So my drinking story, my alcohol-free story, I kind of didn't start drinking till I was in my early 20s. And then it ramped up through my professional life and my dating life and my married life. And that was going on through the 30s. Like, I really got into this place of thinking like alcohol was very sophisticated, like being a business professional, right? Like, go to the hotel bar and grab a glass of wine, then take a glass upstairs to my room, like those types of things. And I was doing that on the road. And then that started happening more at home. My husband would go to bed. I'd have started drinking at dinner time, cooking. And then it was going into after dinner or during dinner and then after dinner. And there was this like progression that was happening with the amount and frequency that I was drinking. It was no longer just out on date nights or out with friends. I was finding there just to be a lot more use of it in my personal life by myself. And then things really kind of kicked up another notch when I was in my late 30s and lost my dad. And then I was using alcohol to manage my grief or not manage it. I was fortunate enough to be taking a break from drinking when I lost him. But then as soon as I came back home a few weeks later to my house, it was like, all right, free reign on the red wine. And things just kind of went from there. The turning point was really a year and a half later. My mom had gotten a really hard diagnosis, a really hard health diagnosis. And it was this week between Christmas and New Year's where I realized, like, it's going to make me emotional right now just talking about it. Mm-hmm. But I realized the time that I was sacrificing with the people that I loved, and I was no longer willing to let alcohol do that. Because what was happening was I would hit a certain point of the day, evening, where I wouldn't call. I wouldn't call or text my mom. I wouldn't have those conversations where we're both in the depths of grief or talk to my sisters. And there were some other significant like family events where I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can go to this thing because of the current state that I'm in a middle of the night emergency that happened. And I don't know, I was like, I don't think I can get in my car right now. So there were some things like that where it really was so my life looked okay, right? Like had my job and had a good career, and my husband and I were going out having fun, going on vacations, like things look good on Instagram, right? But,
Right.
Yeah. But internally, there was such a battle going on for me, and just so much brokenness and separation from myself and from others. So I saw that happening in all areas of my life. So, and I think so many of us do that, right? There's a good face on the outside, and there's just this brokenness inside. So, yeah, so that's a little bit about like kind of where I was. And then I decided to take 30 days off doing an alcohol experiment through This Naked Mind.
Awesome.
And yeah, it was just going to be 30 days. And here we are, almost 7 years later. And about halfway through that 30 days, I realized this isn't just about taking a break from alcohol. There's so much more to this, and there's so much more to this process, and there's so much more for me to uncover and discover. And really, that's what led me to where I am today. I kept following those nudges of what's the next thing that just, feels like it could need some fine tuning, or what's the next thing that feels like peeling back the layers of the onion for me. Mm-hmm. So, and really getting back to who I am at my core and letting that come out in the world.
Oh, I really relate to everything you've said so much. And yeah, I also got alcohol free in 2019. And I'm wondering if we were doing the alcohol experiment at the same time. I always wondered that. Yeah.
I wonder, were you January of that year?
I was February. I did February.
Just a month.
Yeah.
Wow,
so interesting. I know. Yeah.
Wow.
So what was it like, like your personal experience in the early months of sobriety? Did you feel stuck even after removing alcohol?
Oh gosh, yes. I laugh because I look back now just so tenderly on that person then, because gosh, I thought I had it figured out, right? Like I quit drinking and life is going to get better and all these areas of my life are going to improve and it's going to fix all my problems. Mm-hmm. And I expected that after 30 days. But it was in those first few months right after I quit drinking where it really hit me how I was using alcohol in my life for all of these different things and in all these different places. And when I realized that was really where I felt stuck, because I was like, now where do I go from here? This feels really overwhelming. And when I say that, I'm talking about like, okay, there are things that I need to work on in my marriage. There are things that I need to work on in my emotional life. There are, all these different relationships and kind of this, like, I'm like, ooh, the people pleasing. What's going on with that? Hey, I have no boundaries at work. Surprise. Right. Like, so all these things started revealing themselves. And I realized I had been using alcohol, as many of us do, as a management tool until it was no longer working. So, yeah.
It's such a familiar story for the types of women that we work with, right? And the women that find themselves questioning their drinking. None of us were party animals.
Right.
No, we were using alcohol, giving alcohol the job of regulating our nervous system, basically.
Yeah.
And dealing and coping. And and then those things come up, right? All the things that we were drinking over come up. But the great thing is that we have the opportunity to work on them. But the hard thing is that we have the opportunity to work on them.
Oh,
right.
100%.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and Susan, you mentioned the nervous system dysregulation. I didn't even know what that was. When I quit drinking, I kind of followed that path for myself of realizing like, yeah, this thing makes me feel better. And then for myself, I realized, oh, this isn't the only thing I've used in my life to make me feel better that doesn't actually feel good after I do it. I had realized that there had been eating patterns in my life since I was a kid that were offering kind of that same sort of feeling and that same sort of relief that I was looking for. And when I started noticing those patterns for myself after, I'm like, okay, alcohol is no longer in the picture, but I'm still doing stuff that I really am not feeling great about doing, but it makes me feel better in the moment. But then I'm really beating myself up. Like that shame cycle was still there.
Yeah.
And when I saw that, that was really when the nervous system dysregulation work, I started looking, researching and looking into these things and going, oh, what is this?
Yeah. Well,
So
that's a perfect segue to because I'm really interested in your somatic work. And will you just explain to our listeners, what is somatic work and how did it become such a central part of your alcohol-free journey?
Yeah, thank you. I love talking about this because it's just such an area, like I said, following kind of the next nudge of where to go. And Susan, I know it's such a huge place for you and your work with the nervous system regulation. And I think what I want to clarify for people around the somatic work is, so somatic really just means us in our wholeness. It's our body in our wholeness, which I think is just such a lovely word.
Me too.
Yeah. And so a lot of times when we're going through the quitting drinking process or quitting anything process, we think about it through one lens. So maybe that lens is, I'm going to change the behavior, or I'm going to just stop doing the pattern, or I'm going to change my mindset around it, or I'm going to keep myself busy instead of doing this. So, right. So there can be we get kind of down one path and don't really think about the wholeness of us. So when we're talking about things from a somatic perspective, we're talking about every element of our being. So it's our emotional state, our sensations, the physical sensations, our thought, our thinking brain, the thoughts that we're having, and realizing that they're all interconnected. It's not just one route. It's not just one route. For some people, yes, I will say it was the mindset route that really got me going down the path of not drinking. Mm-hmm. And then I hit a wall where I realized there's another part of me that is getting ignored here. And then I realized, there's another part of me that's getting ignored here. And then when I found somatic work, I was like, okay, here we go. We're talking about now the fullness of the person and their experience in life.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. Yeah. And I got into this nervous system regulation this past year. So it is a journey. Like here, like you said, you just sort of follow the steps as we continue to grow in our alcohol-free life. But none of that would have been available to me if I was sitting around drinking, honestly, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, it's sort of the silver lining of having a problem with alcohol. In essence, right? It's like, okay, yeah, but I did something about it. And now it helps you move forward and forward and forward. And you just keep working on yourself. There is no there, right?
Yeah. Alcohol is just the tip of the iceberg. In fact, it's everything else after like you said, Brandi, you start working on relationships or your career, and then you start to feel all those feelings. And what do? Yeah. So I would love to know, in your coaching work, would you like to share one somatic tool or practice that you found most effective, in managing, the urges or emotional overwhelm that a lot of our clients experience?
Absolutely. Yeah. And just if I can preface that with one thing, I do want to acknowledge, so somatic experiencing work, which is what I'm certified in, is really trauma-based. And so there's a difference between when you are navigating the world with trauma that's stuck in your nervous system, because I studied under Dr. Peter Levine's work, and the idea and what he developed back in the 70s and has, come online with so many other clinicians, are, really this idea that trauma is not the story that we tell ourselves, but it's the physical experience. And when we have a traumatic event that maybe has happened in our lives, or we grew up in a traumatic world or experience, or we're in let's say a traumatic work environment for a long period of time where there was a lot of put downs or belittling or whatever it could be, right? I'm just kind of throwing all kinds of things out there. We can react from that place if we don't allow some healing to happen around that. And so because our body keeps responding, so let's say the work environment, really unhealthy work environment, a boss who belittles us, there's like this demand of expectation when email responses come through, maybe some attacks that come back when we're not responding in a timely fashion. And then we quit that job, we go into the next job, but yet we're still responding from that place maybe.
Okay.
And so something can get like stuck inside of us, essentially stuck inside of our nervous system. So why I preface this, the tool with that is because depending on our historical experiences, and if we have an unresolved trauma, we can have different tools that work differently for us. So not all tools are going to be the same experience for everyone. So I like to say that because like things like the, ice bath, like an ice bath, it's supposed to be wonderful for us, not for every nervous system. There are some nervous systems where that will take it over the top and they can have a really negative experience with it.
Okay.
Yeah. So I just preface this. So I'm going to offer two quick tools because they go two different places. One is more of an internal awareness and the other one is more of an external awareness. And so the one that's an internal awareness is find your feet. And this is the simplest one I think I can offer people is find your feet. And what I mean by that is literally just notice your feet on the ground. Notice your feet in the shoes that you're in. Pay attention right now just to the sensations that are there. Maybe notice gravity and the awareness of the gravitational pull under your feet. And as you pay attention to your feet and just find your feet, what do you start to notice? Do you notice maybe your breathing slow down a little bit? Do you know, like I'm noticing my talking voice is slowing down?
Yeah.
I'm doing this. Because I'm doing
it too with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm noticing like, oh, all of a sudden my talking voice is slowing a bit. And so just paying attention to those types of things. And like, I'm like, oh, now I'm noticing actually my legs are a little tingly. And so when we can just find our feet, I love that one because it takes us into this exact moment, right? It's a wonderful mindfulness exercise and it just starts to slow things down. So that's the first one. It's more of an internal. The second one is an external, which is a visual. So when our eyes are so much of our information that our brain takes in comes in through our eyes. It's estimated that somewhere around 70 to 80% of the information that our brain takes in is through our occipital nerves. And so when we are scanning our environment, going back and forth, we're not necessarily allowing our system to experience a sense of safety. So the second tool that I offer is orienting, which is essentially just slowing down our visual system, slowing down our vision to allow some safety to come into our system. And so as I'm going to go ahead and just verbally talk through this, but wherever you're sitting right now, I'd invite you to go ahead and just start to look around the space that you're in front of you and find a place off to your right or off to your left, doesn't matter which, and just find something that your eyes want to land on. So mine are landing on a curtain. Mm-hmm. And as you land on that thing, just see what it feels like to know like, oh, that's the thing I want to look at. Okay. Just notice that. And let your eyes rest there. The resting is what's an important part of this process. And so allowing your eyes to rest there and take in the texture, take in the color, and just see if you notice anything start to shift for you. Usually this takes about 30 seconds or so. For me, I noticed I just took a deeper breath.
Me too.
You too? Yeah. So that's something you notice again, like there's that immediate sort of just, literally I can breathe a little bit. And for some people, it might be the breath. Sometimes it can be even a yawn that comes on. Again, I'm noticing my voice softening even a little bit more. And so just noticing that maybe your shoulders drop a little bit. So just noticing those things. I got more saliva in my mouth. And I mentioned that because that's actually a sign that our parasympathetic system is like online. And so if you like, oh, all of a sudden I'm swallowing. Perfect. I love it. I burped. Oh, yes, that's awesome.
And the yawn too is
Yes.
another sign. Yes.
Yes, exactly.
That little yawn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can do that one side, both sides, take a minute or two to do it, whatever works for you, whatever you have time for, just to allow that. And so you'll notice the settling that happens there, because when we're not scanning, it's teaching our system that we're in a place of safety. So that's why it's important to, once your eyes land somewhere, allow them to rest there on that thing. Candle gazing can be a way to do that. So looking at the flame. Things like that.
Yeah, I love that too. And what I share with a lot of clients is you try lots of different things and see what works for you. Because there's hundreds of different practices or tools or tactics or things that we share as coaches. And I love it when people are just willing to try. So hopefully while you were on listening, or maybe if you're not driving, you can re-listen to this and just focus on either your feet or off, in the distance on a gaze. Yeah.
Yes. Lovely. Yeah. And you're right. Like when you say that, Ruby, there's so many different tools out there, right? And you scroll through social media and it's just like regulating resource after regulating resource. It can be really overwhelming. So I always encourage people, try a handful, but see if you can find your top maybe 3 that work for you. You can pull from, ones where you're by yourself, ones you can do when you're around other people, or even driving, right? Like you said, maybe it's a breathing exercise, maybe it's, a breath work, or that finding your feet, noticing that foot that is sitting on the bottom of the car, so yes. Yeah. There's so many of these things.
Yeah. There's so many. And what would you say would be the very first step? I mean, maybe you've already shared these 2, but is there another way to begin, just listening internally and intentionally to the body?
Yeah, so what I think some people may find surprising, and then you have other listeners who are going to be like, oh, thank you for acknowledging that. There are some people who don't really have a sense of their body. Right. And I think that's really important to name and acknowledge, and name that is totally normal and it's okay. Because, there's a lot of discussion in the world these days around okay, what do you feel inside of you? What is your internal experience like? And people are like, what are you talking about? I'm just sitting here and I just want you to tell me what's going on with me. Right. And so it can get to be a little, I think it can be a little bit challenging for some people when we're asking them, how does that make you feel? And they're like, I really have no idea. And so to answer your question about where's a starting place, I really encourage people to take a pause and acknowledge and see what is one thing I'm aware of from a physical sensation standpoint. That's kind of the foundational work for me with people is, what are you aware of physically right now? And it could be, I'm cold or I'm hot. Or, my lower back hurts because I had a great workout this morning and I probably pushed too hard, right? Having awareness of those types of things is really just the starting place. I think that's the greatest entry point, is being aware of what we do have awareness of, and then seeing if we can start to expand that knowledge. So maybe I am someone who is only aware of what's going on in the outside of me, right? I'm cold, I'm hot, or I'm in pain. Those are kind of the only things I have a sense of. And I'm talking about the physical sensations, not emotional, but so physical sensations. It could be oh, I'm aware that I actually have tears. My eyes are wet. I'm not attaching any meaning to those, right? But my eyes are wet. That's a physical sensation to just notice and be aware of. And so by starting there and seeing if you can expand that awareness of being can I become aware of anything happening in my hand? Or can I become aware of what my heart heartbeat is like, or my breath. Like, are there little things like that that maybe we can notice and start to see about expanding that? So when I work with people, there's guidance along that process. But I encourage everyone to just start with this, like, look up, just Google, what's a list of physical sensations, and see, like, how many of these am I familiar with?
That's a great idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people just aren't even familiar, or even with the feelings, look up a feelings list, look up a body sensations list. I love that idea, Brandi, because then you can start to, when we have like a definition or like see the words. That's why I love like feeling wheels. Maybe there's a body sensation wheel out there somewhere, and start like, just can you expand it and feel, expand it out. I like that.
In our resource. So it's different words like achy or heavy or pounding or shivery. Yeah. And just naming it sometimes brings down the emotional charge of it, like the fear of it. Yeah. So a lot of times people have this with the urge to drink, right? They feel something in their body and they start to freak out. But if you can just name it and go, oh, I'm feeling my ears are pounding, my heart is pounding, my ears feel hot, my hands feel sweaty, then it's like, oh, none of those things are going to kill me. I'm going to be fine, but we don't have any language around that because a lot of us are really detached from our bodies, like
exactly,
myself included. So like learning a new language and just starting with, I loved how you said, what are you aware of? Or I like to use, what are you noticing versus what are you feeling? Because then people go, I feel nothing, or,
yes. Exactly.
And then they feel bad, so yeah.
And it's taken years of this work. Like, I want everybody that's listening, I had no idea what I felt in my body. I still sometimes when I go to the doctor and they're like, where exactly is that pain? And is it a sharp pain? Or I'm like, I don't know. It's a pain,
right. I just hurt.
So it just, I don't know, like it's literally, I'm 6 years alcohol free and I've been doing this type of work as a coach for like 6 years. And it's like, and Susan and I used to do this rain meditation like every week. And I remember we were just like, we're trying to like, what is it in our bodies or what are we feeling? And it's like lifelong work to try to figure this out. So
it's so true. Yeah. And can I offer one other thing, like for people that might be on the opposite end of the spectrum then too? I realized I neglected them and I don't want to. Is people who feel everything and who are hypersensitive to what's going on in their bodies. So that can be, there are people who are like so aware of everything going on in their body that it can be a bit overwhelming. When you ask me to go inwards, I'm like, tell me when to stop listing things, right? And so for people that are, maybe acknowledging that like, oh, that sounds like me, somewhere I would encourage them to start is there one sensation you can allow yourself to focus on and then see how that shifts and changes if you just let yourself focus on it. So like, oh, I noticed that, my chest is feeling a little bit tight right now. Okay. But then I also noticed, gosh, my legs are buzzy. Oh my gosh. And my feet, it's like we can get a little, we can just go and be overwhelmed with that. So coming in and saying, okay, which one is the most prominent right now? And then is there a place in our body maybe that feels the opposite of that? So like, oh, my chest is feeling really tight. Is there somewhere in my body that feels really open or really loose? And so this is where in somatic experiencing, we talk about pendulation. And so kind of coming back and forth between the comfortable and the uncomfortable too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
Yes, there's always the other people, right? I love that. Yeah.
Yes.
So before I'm going to, change subjects a little bit, but because before we started recording, we had talked about that you're having a pretty difficult year.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that you recently lost your mom, and we are so sorry for your loss. We just wanted to say that. But if you're open to it, I'd love to just ask, and maybe you can share about like how grief is shown up differently when you're alcohol free. It's such an important topic, to bring up. Yeah.
It is. And gosh, it's still such a new and raw and tender one. And as we were all just chatting before we got on today, I realized how grateful I am for having quit drinking back, coming up on 7 years ago, and how gathering all these tools along over the course of the years has really shifted my experience with grief and being able to navigate this loss, which is just so substantial. So how has it been different? What's interesting is that, so I went, as I shared earlier, when I lost my dad, alcohol was heavily involved in the grieving process for me. And so I'm a few months out of losing my mom now. And we had a really close relationship, and I was with her a lot in the last months of her life. And there were so many moments in this kind of anticipatory grief time where I was able to navigate it for myself and also be there to better help her navigate what she was going through. And I was fully present for it. Like the allowance of being fully present for really one of the most sacred things that we can do in our lives, to be with someone when they pass and in the last weeks and months of their life. There's just something so incredibly sacred about that. And to be able to be fully present for her and for me, I don't even know that I can't even give words to it. So that has changed the grieving process substantially. And so to be here now in the midst of grief, 2 hours before we got on this call together, this interview together, I got overwhelmed with just wave of grief that came up. And what's so powerful now is that I know I can ride that wave. When I lost my dad, I was using alcohol to avoid going into those waves at all costs. And then what would happen is I would drink, and then I would just kind of lose it. When I was drunk, I would just kind of get into this emotional spiral, but I kept getting stuck in the same emotional spiral, where I can tell that with the grief with my mom, I'm very aware of what's happening and how it is changing just a little bit every time I go through the wave that comes up, and I allow myself to actually go through it. My MO before was shove it down, don't feel it, don't let it out. This isn't, you can deal with this, whatever, deal with this or not deal with this. And now when those waves come up, like the one that, just did here, starting to talk about this, like I'm going to let myself acknowledge that that's there. If there's tears, if sometimes it's anger, I'm just letting myself ride those waves. And what's wonderful about that is that I notice that they come and then they go. Like the waves are usually only about 5 minutes. I have realized, like I've been meaningful and being aware of that because I know it helps people to like hear that. And I realize that these waves, now there are days I have been stuck in the depths of it, and having compassion for myself around that has been huge and substantial. But when I'm in the actual midst of grief and aware of like, okay, what's happening? What's going on right now? I can feel the wave rising. I can feel the emotions. I can feel the wetness in my eyes. Okay, let's allow this to move through. The tightness in my throat. All those signs for me that are like, ooh, that grief is it's just sitting there right now. And so I allow that to kind of come up a little bit and then ride the wave of it coming down. So for me, it really is the acknowledgement that it's there. Like Susan spoke about really kind of like, don't be scared of it. If we name it, we don't have to be scared of it. And so allowing it, I can look at it and say, okay, it's there. I'm going to let it come up. I'm not going to turn away from it like I used to do. So that's been a huge shift for me in the grieving process. And there are still days that are like, I don't want to get out of bed, because it's just so hard and so painful. And yet I do, like, I give myself some compassion in those moments. What do I need right now? And then I keep moving forward. So my grief with my dad really got stuck for a long period of time. With the loss of my mom, I can feel the fluidity that's there, and I can feel that it's changing. and that it's moving and it's not stuck. And I credit that to so many things. The big one, quitting drinking, and then that opening the gate for all of these other ways to grow and learn how to be and navigate life and be in the wholeness of my life experience. So
thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
And I want to acknowledge that, like, that time you're alcohol free and that time that you had with your mom for several, I think you said for several months, you were walking her and you through it, but you were present, and I think some of the biggest regrets that I hear are people that, just were drinking through a diagnosis of a loved one and then they weren't present. And it's just honestly, it's a gift. You said sacred, the word sacred. And that I think is that word, I can just feel that means a lot, to just have a sacred moment and be present and see it as a gift. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, 100%. And, I think it's important to acknowledge that there's so much that comes up after this. I'm not doing grief perfectly. And I don't know if there's a perfect way to do it, but
I don't think there is. Yeah.
No, but like I'm in the messy of it. And I think that's the big thing is like, I'm letting myself be in the messy of it. And not all days. Some days I'm binge watching Southern Charm for 2 or 3 hours at night before I go to bed, like, let's just be real here. And being like, okay, I don't want to be in my world right now. And I think giving ourselves the permission to just like acknowledge it, that's okay too. Those are ways that we take care of ourselves too. Mm-hmm. I feel like I know myself, I can get pretty judgy towards myself when those things come up. I'm like, well, I'm not drinking, but I'm doing this, but I'm not getting stuck there. Like I think that's, again, it's coming back to there's fluidity there. So yeah.
Wow. I'm just so sorry. I feel wetness in my eyes as you're talking. Oh, I feel that too. Like that's, just really beautiful though, the way you've described the experience with your mom and so my heart just goes out to you though.
And I appreciate the empathy from both of you. I sure do. We never know what it's going to be like until we go through it or we're in it. And I know it's just, the rest of my life that it's going to be impacted. So.
And we can't escape it. All human beings cannot escape losing a loved one. So we're, it's that common humanity piece of self-compassion that we're all going to experience this at some point in some way. And I loved how, yes, it's like, we also talk about, right, the wave when you have a craving for alcohol. And I was picturing that maybe because you've gone through that, and gone through those cravings of alcohol and different things, that now you're applying this same sort of, okay, I'm going to ride the wave. I'm going to allow the feeling.
Yeah,
it's not
absolutely. I think the big thing is that there's like the sensational awareness and the emotional awareness, and emotions are motion. They're in motion, they're energy in motion, right? And when we are feeling emotions arise in some capacity, whether it is sadness, grief, anger, joy, like if we're not allowing it some sort of way to move, it's going to get stuck inside of us, and we're going to end up, kind of just piling on, all of a sudden having all these things stuck inside of us. And that was my life for a very long time. And, as a kid, I was often like, oh, Brandi, you're so sensitive. And so I learned to shut that down in a lot of ways. And now I'm like, let's sing it from the rooftops. Yeah. Like, I will be the demonstrator of tears in this room right now. Right? Like I am happy to do that. There's, I don't hold back from those things. I don't get lost in them, but I don't stop them anymore. So Yeah.
A big visual that I often will use is like a ball being like a beach ball being pushed underwater when you're holding, and eventually it like pops up. So if we can kind of let off steam, so to speak, and just allow yourself to scream and cry if you need to, or, pound on pillows, or just really like allow that emotion, that anger or the denial or the sadness, or
Yeah. Let it
instead of
move.
holding it. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah. Just acknowledge it, and it'll find its way if we just acknowledge it, I think. Yeah.
I've heard this being said that the person with the most regulated nervous system is the most powerful person in the room.
Ooh.
Because you can just sense that person is just, so this is like life work. This is like work in order for us to show up as the best version of ourselves in that moment. And so you showed up as the best version of yourself for your mom in that moment. And we grow and change. And like you said, we're not perfect. Nobody's perfect. There is no perfect. There's no such thing, period. But as we continue to work and learn new tools and just continue to, and the thing that stopped us from doing any of this, and the women I work with and the women we all work with, right, is alcohol. It's like stunts your growth, right? Because when you start using alcohol and to stop feeling, then you stop growing.
Yeah.
And
you get stuck. You get stuck there.
Yeah.
You do. Yeah. I mean, especially when you're dealing with an addictive substance, right? Like it's just, it makes it it adds that level of complexity to it and that stuckness. So yeah, you said something powerful there, Susan, about the most regulated system, in the room. And it's true. Co-regulation is such a real thing. And I love that it's studied. And there have been studies done that, so one, our nervous systems, the three of us sitting here talking together, they're all communicating with each other under the radar. And when you're in a room with someone, it's that much more powerful, right? Like you walk into a room and you walk in and you're like, oh, I just kind of have a sense that things feel a little jittery in this room, right? Mm-hmm. But if you can walk into that room and say, hey, I'm going to find my feet and I'm going to start to be this regulated, come from this regulated place in this conversation or in this room, in this space, your system is going to start telling these other systems, hey, it's okay to relax. We're okay here. Things are safe. Things are calm. And there have been studies done. I'm forgetting the number off the top of my head, but I think it's either 30 or 50 feet away that our nervous systems are talking to each other. They've been able to.
No idea.
Isn't that fascinating? Yeah, they've been able to track the communication paths well beyond my scope of knowledge, but an experience of how that's actually done. But it's incredible that an entire room can really start to talk to each other under the surface of our words and everything else that we show. So just fascinating,
so cool,
right?
Yeah.
I know, it is so cool.
Fascinating.
I mean, I feel it being in this space with you and Ruby. I mean, I kind of flew in like a crazy person, threw this hat on, and here I am. But I feel much calmer and regulated just being here with you. So you helped me. I co-regulated with you, actually. And
I love that. I feel like that's always one of the greatest compliments we can have for each other. So I mean, I really co-regulated with you. It's so I laugh about that with people sometimes because that are in my space, because in the somatic world, which you are as well. And so I love that we get to have that conversation. So
that's so cool.
Yeah.
And your practices helps too. The being aware and noticing your feet, and then noticing something off in the distance. Well, Brandi, this is the time in our podcast where we always ask our guests, what do you do to feel lit, alcohol free? Like what's lighting up your world these days, even in the midst of a hard time? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I still am really looking for the joyful moments and allowing myself to experience those. And one of the greatest places, I love this question, and I always love listening to people's responses to it. For me, it's spending time with my niece and nephew who are 7 and 9.
Oh,
And so, oh my gosh,
Fun ages.
yes. So spending time with them, like they are just so in the moment. There's so much joy. There's so much open love. Like there's so much fun and laughter and just so much rawness of like who they are. Like there's so much fun. And so they really are a huge part of that for me. Yeah.
Spending time with kids. Yes, I love it. They always, you're right. They're just in the moment, present. They don't have all those other things that people end up with as you age, right?
Exactly.
But it brings you back to that fun laughter time. Yes. Okay. I'm going to find some little kids. My nieces and nephews are now in their 20s, which I enjoy spending time with them too. Yeah. We play games. And so
I love that.
I love it.
Yeah. They live in the moment, right? There's a lot more living in the moment. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Brandi, thank you so much for coming on to the Sober and Lit podcast. Our listeners are really going to love hearing from you. And thank you for sharing so vulnerably. Yeah. Lots of love. Yeah.
Gosh, thank you so much. I was so honored to be asked to come on by each of you, and it means a world to get to be here. So thank you. Thanks for letting me share this tender time in my life too. I sure appreciate it. So
right.
I think it's going to be really helpful for a lot of people. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to the Sober and Lit podcast.
If you enjoyed this episode, we would love it if you would subscribe, rate, and review. It really helps get the word out.
And remember, do something today to help you feel lit.
See you next week.